And welcome back to Retrospect My Fantasy, where we are currently taking a look at Final Fantasy franchise, and we're on installment number 13. Now, before we get into the game, got a couple things to go over. Number one is that this Saturday, that's right, the 31st, from noon to as long as it takes, we are going to be playing Telltale's The Walking Dead Season 3 as a bonus stream and giving away a whole bunch of awesome stuff. The first thing we're going to be giving away is a copy of Telltale's The Walking Dead: A New Frontier, or Season 3. We're also going to be giving away 3 $20 Steam gift cards, and the final thing I'm going to be giving away is a copy of Psychonauts, one of my personal favorite games. So, if you are interested in checking that out, or possibly winning some awesome stuff, click on that link that I threw into chat. That'll take you to our event page where you can set yourself a reminder. Beyond that, there's only a couple of rules that you need to follow in order to win. Rule number 1, you need to be in chat when I call your name. And rule number 2, you need to be a follower. Once those two conditions are met, when I roll and you pull out your name, you're a winner. Now, that is going to be... here, when I initially played through the game, it was about 6 hours-ish, maybe 6.5. So we might take all 8 hours. I don't know. I've never done a giveaway on stream before. So we'll see. It's kind of a big experiment, but we'll figure it all out. Don't worry. Announcement number 2 is that we are partners with Humble. And one thing that Humble does occasionally, on top of all the awesome normal stuff, like donating a portion of the proceeds of all sales to charities and having awesome sales, but right now, if you go to the Humble store, you can pick up Spec Ops: The Line for free. So, if you're interested in that game, go check it out, pick it up for free. I highly recommend that game. Not only is it a game that I thoroughly enjoyed when I played through it, but it is a game that we will be playing as a bonus stream some point down the line. But by taking that link, if you make any purchases from the store, not anything that's free, obviously, because that's not really a purchase. I mean, it is for the purposes of how internet commerce works, but anything that costs money, via anything from the store, signing up for a Humble Bundle, or signing up for Humble Monthly, a portion of the proceeds will go to us. And a portion of the proceeds will go to the charity of my choice, which is Doctors Without Borders. So, if you're interested in picking up a game, please use my link to do so. Now, last time on Final Fantasy 13. We were running around inside the ship of the government, the sanctuary. We're on a rescue/kill mission. Our job is currently our tasks are to rescue Vanille and Zaz, because they've been captured, and also find some way to take the sanctuary down, or at least a good portion of it. However, we are currently surrounded by a lot of robots. Like, a lot of robots. I mean, there's normal people too, but we're mostly surrounded by robots. And we're going to beat up a bunch of these people and these robots, and hopefully that will get us to where we need to go, and get us a whole bunch of items and XP, because we are definitely in need. Less so XP, although I would like to tap out before facing the boss. That way, when we move on to the next area, we have less that we need to worry about in terms of leveling up.
Didn't even break a sweat.
That's kind of how I like to play these games, is if you're going to lock out the ability to do like the leveling up to only certain levels at certain points, the way I like to do it, because a few other games have done this sort of thing, is I like to reach whatever my maximum level is for the area that I'm allowed, and then, you know, exceed the experience a little bit. That way, when I get to the next area, when more levels open up, I'm in less of any sort of worry. Actually, the biggest one is, oh, it's not the biggest one. I was going to say the biggest one is Star Ocean, but that was, in Star Ocean 2, it's certainly the one where I did more planning for a game than any other. And that in my first playthrough, I just kind of kept going until, I wouldn't even say like the enemies were hard, I just kept going, just pushing forward. And it worked out. I mean, I was able to beat the game. There were a couple parts that were kind of difficult, but I just, you know, kept pushing forward. My second playthrough, I, like, set limits of where I had to be at certain points. That way I can optimally do certain things moving forward. I got really into that game for a while. And it's not that it's like a bad game. It's not a bad thing that I got really into it. It's just that there's a lot to do in Star Ocean 2. Way more than there probably ought to be perfectly honest. But it was a 4-disc game. Was it 4-disc or was it only 8? I remember it's multi-disc. I don't remember how many discs it was now. But it was ambitious, as most Star Ocean games actually tend to be. The Star Ocean series, for their time, tend to be ambitious. At least for the first two. Star Ocean 3 was less ambitious and more just kind of went with like a surreal thing, which didn't really work for me. But looking back on it, Star Ocean 3 is fine. And then there was, what is it? That was Till the End of Time. And then there was it Star Ocean A New Hope, which came out, or The New Hope? A New Hope? I don't remember exactly what its subtitle was, but it was a prequel Star Ocean game. And it was very, very bad. Hey, let's get a little healing in, because Lightning is pretty messed up right now. And since she is the only person that needs to live,
thanks.
We should probably make sure that she's living. Everyone else can die, just not Lightning. And we need to punch your ticket here pretty soon, because you, yeah, are going to use that ability. I don't really like that ability. That ability hurts. A lot. Yeah, we'll get him. So, one thing that I really like about the Star Ocean series is the first two Star Ocean games, is that there's a lot in the games that you will probably never see, because that game, or those games I should say, have not just a lot going on, like that's a bit of an understatement. They have the world going on. Okay. Anything interesting down here? Anything interesting in these jets areas? No? That's a shame. There should totally be hidden items in there. For instance, I mean, this is the best example of what the Star Ocean games are capable of. In Star Ocean 2, the second story, there are some characters that you cannot get if you have other characters. And Conversely, there are some characters that you can't get unless you have certain other characters. Which I know some people are kind of annoyed by. But I, personally, really like it. Did we sneak up? We did! That's good. Because we really need to kill these Vespids faster than pretty much anything else. There we go. Alright, Vespid's down. How's it going, Kassan? I am doing well. How are you doing? This has been a much better week than last week, in my normal personal life. So, no more, at least for now, weirdo streams where we play games that are not in our general oeuvre. Unless you guys really want me to play more Dream Daddy, I'll play it. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're doing well. Ah. Oh yeah. I'm pretty sure we got this guy's ticket. Oh, God. Yes. Yes, there is. The joys of a live stream. Hey, look at that. I pushed this other button over here to change scenes, and there's suddenly a game on screen. Look at that. How you doing, Henry? That's... I'll cut myself a little slack. That's my first major flub in quite a while. So I'll cut myself a little slack. But not too much. Oh ho ho! A treasure chest with a total of 300 gil. Because you know what I'm having a hard time with is getting things to sell. There's a lot of you guys buzzing around. I don't like you guys.
Keep your mind on
this
the
is gonna be a wonderful fight. I want to say in my actual playthrough when I was doing this, hoping it would be fun, I skipped a lot of these fights simply because you don't have to fight all of them.
Target's a target.
And I figured, well, if the game really wants me to do all these fights, they'll just make the boss fights harder, and then I'll have to go and do stuff. But up until a certain point in the game, they weren't getting more difficult. They just kept on being the same. Alright, so we need to get him up there a little bit so that it won't drain away by the time people get their attacks in. Thank you guys. Legit thank you. Because it probably would have been like half an hour before I looked over and saw that it was just my face on the screen. As it was, really, like, what, 10 minutes? So that's not bad. Not bad at all. we go. Although I do like the fact that I can drink coffee in these fights, but I was also able to do that in 12. And really most Final Fantasy games, because when you're just doing normal battles, unless it's a particularly difficult enemy, which we had a lot of in 10, we can just... I mean, I wouldn't exactly call it button mashing, because that implies certain connotations, but it's more or less button mashing. I mean, it's only one button, so I guess that fits even better. We might be powerful enough to defeat the boss of this zone. I honestly don't recall, but I think we might actually be there already. That's good. Yep, we got all that. We'll finish off Commando, and then move over into Saboteur. Wow, so much, 1200 per level. Although we have all the abilities, so now it's just stats. So that's mostly fine. When it comes to things like Saboteur, it's less about the stats and more about any sort of abilities you pick up. Commando and Sentinel are way, or to a lesser degree Ravager, are way more about the stats. There you go. Yeah, you totally see me. What was I talking about with Star Ocean? Oh, yeah, in Star Ocean 2, I got really hard. It was early high school, around just shortly after I bought my PS2. I got real heavy into like trying to figure out, for me, what was the optimal way to do things.
Thank you.
Because there are skills in the game, not like attack skills, but there are attack skills, but you can learn what would seem like normal everyday skills, which have a crafting component to them, like cooking, except they also have a combat mechanic to them. But they also apply synergies to each other at certain levels. So in order to optimize it, I probably don't have the notes anymore, but I created essentially an entire, like, half of a spiral notebook full of how to do this, for like how to optimize every character in that game. Like, I got into it deep, and then I also figured out like what in general is just the best team and how to get them, which the best team is actually really easy to get. All you have to do is play the game and make the right conversation choices. It's not even like some of the other characters where you have to go to a dungeon at a certain time with certain characters in your party, locate the character you want to get, talk to them. That'll start a pseudo event, and then you go and do this other thing, and then you talk to them again, and then you go and do this other thing, and then you have to talk to them one final time, and if you don't choose the right conversation choices, then you don't get the character. And then you need that character to get another character. That's the kind of bullshit that was in Star Ocean: The Second Story. But the storyline was okay. I mean, it wasn't amazing. Gameplay was pretty fun. You had to take a far more active role in combat for the character that you chose to be in control of. Otherwise, your other characters that were around you were fully AI controlled depending on what abilities you selected them to be able to use. So you would actually just go into their magic or their combat abilities and just be like, yeah, you can use Fireball, but not Fire, because Fire's too weak now, and I don't want you wasting any MP on such piddlesome little spells. And then, of course, you need to use this spell, and well, we're in an area where there's poison, so we need to go back in and select Poison as a usable, or anti-poison, whatever it was called in that game. It would be Panacea in most Final Fantasy games. Or you can just turn off somebody's like spells altogether and just be like, no, I know you're our healer, but no, screw that. You're gonna just run up and punch people a lot. All right, so he's a commando, a ravager. Wow, is Snow's maxed out before anyone else? Well, damn. They took some of that away in Star Ocean 3 until the end of time. They didn't have as many like complex combinations. Well, that looks fun.
So Light, how you figure this makes us lucky? Because when we kill it, we're one step closer to Vanille. How's that? Well, when you put it that way.
Does that thing have paper clips? That thing totally has paper clips.
Change of plan.
On its wings. And then the fourth Star Ocean game, which is the prequel, is just a hot mess. That's the best way I can put that game. Graphically, it's a hot mess. Character design, it's a hot mess. It's just not good. Alright, Hope, come on, hurry up. Cast Shell on everyone. Because I have a feeling this enemy might actually use... There we go. Now tear him down. The dungeons were really boring. The enemies were not very fun to fight. The abilities the characters could use, most of the spells were carryovers from previous spells in the franchise, but the other abilities were bad. The script was probably the worst part. The regular story elements were, I mean, fine. They were really generic, but whatever. When you, after so many JRPGs, you kind of learn to live with generic storylines. But the script was just terrible. And they forced it to kind of fit in the continuity of the greater Star Ocean franchise. Which it really shouldn't have. I guess the best way I can put it is that it was a game for Xbox 360 and PS3 that looked and played like a game from the PS2. A bad game on PS2. Right, yeah, I thought that was a bit too easy.
One big fat stroke of luck after another. I'm so happy I can cry.
Tease us, will ya?
Come down here!
Oh, hey. Look who's here.
Vanille!
There you are. Miss me? You, the monster! Where?
That was a good line. That got a legit laugh out of me. Alright, so same team, huh? Alright, time to even the odds again. another one of those franchises that, like, legit was really good, but for some reason I just couldn't really get into some of the sequels. Grandia, actually. I loved the first Grandia. It's probably one of my favorite JRPGs. But Grandia 2, because they didn't carry the storyline over, it's mechanically the sequel. It is, from everything I've seen, it is straight up the sequel to the game, Grandia 1 mechanically. And the themes are similar, but the actual storyline itself is not. And that... Hey, Wicked, how you doing? And that was something that was a bit of a disappointment, but I didn't buy it, so I didn't have to really worry about it. But I do own Grandia 1, and I think I've played through it 4 times. So, more so than most games that I own. Hell, I've owned Disgaea, the first Disgaea, ever since it came out. And I've never beaten it. Yeah, there's got to be something that like either grabs you, or it's just it's not going to hold your attention and it's not going to keep you there, and that's kind of the problem with a lot of RPGs, is that they just don't. They fail in some fundamental way. This guy... We're gonna kill him before we get his stagger up. I'm doing alright. This is a much better week than last week was, so... Unless you guys really want me to play Dream Daddy on Friday, we'll be playing more 13. Alright, boss down. That one was a lot more dangerous, but in terms of its damage output, but less so in terms of its durability. Yeah, as far as like I said, as far as RPGs go, if it doesn't grab you,
you've still got time.
In the first, I don't know, I'd say...
There's something I need to tell you. Making me worry like
I'd say about 10 hours. If an RPG can't grab you in the first 10 hours, it's never going to. That game's pretty much over.
Oh, nothing. Nothing. So, what's on the agenda?
Toppling the sanctum?
No, I mean really.
He's serious. We're gonna take down the sanctum and give Cocoon back to the people. The Fal'Cie have called the shots for long enough.
If we pull
I
this off,
tend
it'll be a
towards... I prefer good stories, but it has to have gameplay that's at least fun enough.
More of them?
Check this out. A miracle. Grand Pulse style. Vanille, go fish. Got it.
How long are those...
That's a good girl.
That is a very good point. Like, some fighting games
All right.
have okay story, So for me, it has to be great in one area and reasonably passable in the other. If it has great story, it can be a little lacking in the gameplay department, but it still has to be good enough gameplay to either have me enjoy the novelty of its gameplay, or be at least fun enough that
Believe in Lady Luck now?
I can not hate the game the entire time that I'm playing it.
Time to purge a Primarch.
You got it.
Or if it's going to be all all gameplay, then it's got to be the tightest, best gameplay possible with like a mediocre story. That's one thing that I like about the Blaze Blue series of fighters is the storyline of Blaze Blue is
if we stuck together,
quaint, or not quaint, quaint's the wrong word, is novel, and vaguely interesting in kind of an anime way. But the gameplay is very tight. The controls and the responsiveness is very, very good. Arxis knows how to make a fighting game. I could never really get into Guilty Gear, even though I love the aesthetic of Guilty Gear more than Blaze Blue. Just because
we're still gonna have our talk.
There wasn't really much of a good story in the Guilty Gear games. Alright, now that we have all of our characters together, they're going to tell us about how to change our characters around. Any expanding? You're done at Commando. You're done at Ravager. You're almost done at Medic. Two, three. So I need 4,000 more for Medic. Ravager is done. Medic is done. Synergist is almost done. I know a lot of people are really into the Tekken storyline, because the Tekken storyline continues from game to game. I couldn't get into it. Yeah. Yeah, that's not too far off. Oh, that's right. For somehow Snow's levels made it so that he's topped out. What was it? Tekken 3? So, most Tekken games, for those who are not initiated into the world, most Tekken games have a primary storyline that follows... Well, it revolves around the Mishima family, but usually follows about 3 characters. And that usually at least one of them is a Mishima, and then there will be another character that gets a fair amount of limelight, but not enough to really make up for anything. And I want to say was it Tekken 3, the one where it was Wang's storyline? Like, Wang was the important tertiary character that they brought into the primary fold. Because it was about the person, his friend, his master, and his employer, who brought him on as the gardener, and to look over his son, who he knew was after the Devil Gene, to watch over and make sure his son never got it. Alright. I'm probably screwing that up somewhere, but that's what I recall. But yeah, overall, it is definitely like a Michael Bay-esque storyline. Okay, so our characters We're doing pretty good, level-wise. This is an interesting little bridge. This reminds me of something that should be out of a,
Nothing I can't handle.
oh god, how could I forget the name of those damn games? A Mega 10 game. That is Shin Megami Tensei. Commonly referred to by its fan base as Mega 10. But just kind of cut a few syllables out. Ooh, Fang. You're hurt. In fact, this looks like it's something right out of Nocturne. This whole, like, just area right here in front of us. If you want to talk about a game where the gameplay is kind of weird and loose, but the storyline is like, I'm not going to say God tier because it's not God tier. The storyline is super weird and makes no damn sense, but really fun. That is Mega 10 games. Pretty much in a nutshell. Our storylines make no sense,
We can win if we stay focused.
but are very fun. Alright, Bazooka Guy needs to go as quickly as we can possibly get rid of him. Hope, you need to take care of that pesky little getting hit problem.
Nothing personal. You asked for it.
Alright. So let's give him a chance to heal up a little bit.
New strategy.
Meanwhile, hopefully,
You looking at me?
Fang can just keep its ire. Apparently not.
You asked for it.
My favorite opening sequence to any fighting game, though, is definitely a Tekken. It's the one where Hayachi is beating up his son and his grandson, and then a whole bunch of jacks just like dogpile the three of them and explode. What was that? Was that 4? Like, completely ridiculous and way over the top and absolutely amazing. Although, unlike many fighting games who have had movies, Tekken has the best
Just like that
movies
plan.
for fighting games. Because, and this is an important distinction, they're not the Dead or Alive or the Street Fighter fighting games. Or movies. So, that alone makes them the best fighting game movies. Ooh, a couple of rune bracelets. That's nice. I know, it's like real heavy competition. Actually, that's not fair. The Street Fighter Chun-Li movie was better than most fighting game Actually, better than just most video game movies. Again, not exactly a high bar, but it was something. You know? And that... It tried. It didn't get there, but it tried. And I think that's an important distinction between it and many other fighting or just video game movies. Roland, my housemate, and we frequently discuss just random BS stuff, and he put the first Street Fighter movie, the live-action one starring Jean-Claude Van Damme, in the best way that I've ever heard, and that is basically some movie exec heard how excited his kid was about this game and asked him what it's about, and then when the kid told him the story, he's like, oh, we could totally turn that into a movie. Which is why Chun-Li is a reporter as opposed to an Interpol agent, and why... Ooh, Hope, you're pretty messed up, man. And why, like, Balrog is helping her, or Balrog and E Honda are helping her try and get information on M. Bison. It's... If you've never seen that movie, and you want to see probably the best performance of your life in the worst movie ever, the best performance of your life, one of the best performances ever in one of the worst movies ever, you should watch it, because Raul Julia, the guy who plays M. Bison, is amazing. And unfortunately, that's one of his last roles, and he does not deserve that. Because he died relatively shortly thereafter. Yeah. He's one of those actors that, had he not passed, would probably be like the older leading man. This is a common archetype in film. You see like the older like ladies man sort of thing going on. He would have been that. If you don't know who Raul Julia is, if you've seen any of the Addams Family movies, he's Gomez. Where he also is amazing in that movie, so... Raul Julia is just an amazing actor who, unfortunately, his last role was a pile. Well, Hope is going to be taking extra damage for a little while. Alright, Lightning. It's pretty much all on you to win the day. These other two characters aren't going to do anything. I mean, one's totally going to heal and one's going to draw aggro, but nope, not going to do anything. Actually, she's going to be drawing a lot of aggro, and I don't know if Hope can actually heal uphill against the amount of damage that she's going to be taking, even while guarding. Trying to think if there was any other like outstanding early video game movies. I know there's been a couple of video game movies since that have been not terrible. From my understanding, the Assassin's Creed movie was okay. I haven't seen it, but my understanding is that it's actually pretty good. Not exactly faithful, but fine. The WoW movie, from my understanding, is actually, if you're into the WoW storyline...
You looking at me?
WoW. If you're into the Warcraft storyline, it's actually, from my understanding, very good.
You looking at me?
Thanks.
Because it's pretty much a retelling of Warcraft 1.
Keep the enemy off balance.
Doom movie, not great, but honestly, what did we expect from a movie about Doom? Did we expect rich characters and deep storylines? Is he stuck there? Okay, never mind. Good. For a moment there, I thought he was glitched out. Actually, the first Mortal Kombat movie was... I remember enjoying a lot. Although the CG... didn't even hold up at the time. I mean, there was very little CG, but it didn't hold up. And then the later Mortal Kombat movies just got really bad. I know I'm forgetting some... Oh, of course, Wing Commander was a very bad movie with a couple of very good actors in it, like Jürgen Prochnow. I mean, I'm not exactly treading over, like, new ground or anything, but it's interesting to, like, go, like, think about some of these old video game movies and, like... Doom, I think our expectations were a little high. I don't know why we had such high hopes for a movie about Doom, but we did. And... I mean... As we have been... As has been proved, it was not a great movie. So maybe we deserve the blame for that one. For, you know, setting those expectations. Hello there, buddy. Okay, well... let's take care of the Dragoons. Those guys hit pretty hard. With their missile bursts and all. 665. Oh. Alright. I guess if we have to immediately go into solidarity, we will. I don't know why, but not a lot of video game movies are really springing to mind right now. I know if I was just, like... bullshitting with someone and not, like, performing, that a lot more would come to mind, but... I mean, I know there's a lot of anime movies. There's an animated movie for Dead Space. There's an animated, which is fine. There's an animated movie for, oh god, what is it? Halo, which I've never seen, but I heard reasonable things about. Of course, the anime movie for Street Fighter is amazing and is just the storyline of Street Fighter 2. I think it's based on a comic. Because I know that was a thing for a while, that there was a comic line for Street Fighter. Were there... Actually, I think I pretty much hit them all, because there was definitely a time when everybody thought that video game movies were going to be the next big thing. But then after a few flops, that idea went away, and we then moved on towards more of the superhero movies, or I guess just comic book movies in general, which then went pretty much straight to superhero movies, and well, those have proved to be extraordinarily successful. Even the bad superhero movies do better than many, many other movies out there on the market. So that should tell you something about where pop culture is right now. It's all about superheroes. Oh, actually, one video game movie. It's an animated movie, not a live action. But it's an important note, is because it almost always gets forgotten about when talking about video game movies, and that is Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within. I remember watching that movie in the theater. I saw it opening day with 5 other people in the theater. Opening showing with 5 other people in the theater. And honestly, I was not disappointed. I enjoyed the movie quite a bit. I was hoping for more Final Fantasy than what we got, but I thought the graphics, especially for the time, the CG was ridiculous. Nope, wrong guy. Like, over the top ridiculous. And the voice acting talent that they got for the movie, strictly amazing. Out of this world. Not exactly a fantasy story, though not every Final Fantasy has been a fantasy story. Some of them have been sci-fi.
You asked for it.
So, can I really blame them for that? I don't think so. Get away from Fang, damn it.
You looking at me?
Good job.
You looking at me?
And then when I got the DVD and it was chock full of extras, that was really neat. It was the first DVD that I had that really had, like, a lot of bonus material. But most people did not like that movie. It was not well received critically by either fans or regular moviegoers or critics. In fact, it was, I wouldn't say hated, but in general, not very well enjoyed. Which, actually, even going back and watching it, like, the graphics don't hold up, but even for the time, like, they had fairly good eyes and eye reflections, they had a hair physics that was, at the time, leaps and bounds above anything else. And it really just kind of showed off what Square was capable of doing in the realm of CG. I mean, Square is pretty much unbeatable when it comes to how their games look.
You looking at me?
I mean, that's not entirely fair, but the average Square game is going to look better than the average game of any other franchise. That's just straight up how it is. I mean, this game is 6 years old? No, it can't be that old. Maybe it is. And it is. This looks great. I mean, it doesn't play particularly well, and the storyline's mediocre, but it looks freaking amazing. I really want to get all the items, but I'm not sure we'll have enough time to do all the fights and beat the boss before the end of tonight's episode. We'll see if we can't take stock in what items remain once we get over here. Because I know there's one on the far right of the room. All the way at the end. That was not particularly... Yeah, so there's one on each side on the far end. Well, we'll see. We'll get as far as we can. Unfortunately, because I have an early morning tomorrow, I can't really push it like I might want to otherwise. We'll just need to be a little smarter. Destroyer, huh? Destroyer sounds pretty bad, so... Alright, well... At least we have him... The Destroyer pretty much gone. Oh ho! We accidentally dodged the photon burst.
Target's a target.
Alright, definitely need to heal up now, because we can't really afford to take any big hits with lightning at that low HP value.
Thanks.
Alright, Hope, please take care of yourself and Fang, so then we can move on to kicking this Thermodon's ass. Alright, we'll wait for it to do one last photon burst. And then we will take it down. Alright, time to get ag. So, while I wasn't talking about video game movies, I was thinking, like, why have, like, this has, of course, been analyzed by tons of people, so I may or may not be able to bring any new insights to anything, but why haven't video game movies really worked? And there's a couple things that spring to mind. One, video games are inherently a interactive medium. And it's difficult to translate the parts that would be interactive to a movie-style storyline, because movies don't have the tools of the interactivity that video games do. So that's the first thing that comes to mind in terms of why video game movies might not work. The second one is, because of the interactivity, video games until recently at least, have been relatively anemic on the storyline. Take, for instance, this wonderful video game movie that I forgot about until just now. Super Mario Bros. The movie. Starring John Leguizamo. Great actor. But bad movie. In fact, a very bad movie. That was another one of those situations where it seems as though the director and possibly more of the staff, writers or whatever, just had the basic storyline told to them by the perspective of a child, or from the perspective of a child, and they ran with it for no real reason. And it wasn't good. In fact, I would say that it was probably worse. I don't know how many of you are old enough to really remember renting video games. But in the early days, like renting Nintendo games,
On your toes.
or even Super Nintendo games, you didn't get the manual, because, of course, there's no way they could guarantee that you would ever get the manual. So what they would do is they would print kind of a half-assed version of the manual, or another thing that they would frequently do is put all the controls and the loosest storyline on the box of the rental itself. And that really loose storyline would be just kind of like, wow.
No.
Damn, they tore Lightning apart. Okay. Alright, guys. Do we have any more? And I'm pretty sure, for instance, that's where we get the Italian plumber thing. For Mario. He's Italian because he's got a big old bushy mustache, and he's a plumber because there's pipes and he goes into them. What? What about his name? Well, his name is Mario, and his brother's name is Luigi. Well, what about their last names? Mario? Not to say that someone wouldn't necessarily give their first name of their child as, make their first name and last name be the same. There are definitely parents out there that would do that sort of thing. But that's not common in Japanese culture. It's, to my knowledge, not common in Italian culture to do something like that. So, why? Because there wasn't an answer when they were told this basic overview of the story before making the movie. There's just a lot of weird choices when you start breaking down, like, where some of these ideas for some of these movies come from. Like, some of them make no sense whatsoever. And well, it is what it is. Games aren't always going to make sense, but you know, sometimes you can hope. Or, as hope is proving right here, maybe we can't hope. Oh god, that would have been really bad if Lightning had died in the transition. Alright, time to get rid of these dragoons. It's quickly as possible. Thank you, Fang, for being awesome. Alright, yeah, we got this. That might have been a bad time to switch over. Just in time to get missiles to the face. But that was very common. Like, Mega Man had a similar treatment, where they would try and, like, someone at the rental shop would try and come up with a story, and then they would just type it out on a word processor, print it, and tape it onto the box. I want to say, well, what's the one that I remember from Mega Man? It's Mega, spelled in all caps, Man, defeats all the bosses to save the world, or something like that. It's like, well, I mean, you're not wrong, but you sure as hell ain't right either. Alright, a bazooka, a couple of bazookas, and a huntress. Alright. This will be painful. But that, I mean, thank God there hasn't been a Mega Man movie yet. Oh God, could you imagine how much they'd screw that up? Oh God. Or like a Castlevania or a Metroid movie. Oh Jesus, that would just be like legit painful. That's how bad it would be. The Tomb Raider movies, in general, have been fine. I'm looking forward to this new one, although from the few previews that I've seen of it, it seems just to be Tomb Raider, the 2015 game, in movie form, which is not the right way to go. Although, that is a much better movie to try that, or video game to try that with than most. The kind of direct translation.
Just another battle.
What they should really be doing is taking the inspiration from these games and building their own story around it. So let's just try and workshop this for a second. How would we build a good storyline for Street Fighter? Everybody knows Street Fighter. M. Bison, evil overlord of crime organization Shadow Law, is trying to take over the body of the strongest fighters in the world so that he can be the strongest fighter. And he does this over and over again to essentially gain more and more power and become immortal. That's more or less his motivation. Ryu, who's typically considered the protagonist because he's the strongest fighter and the one that M. Bison is typically going after, just wants to be the best. He doesn't care about money or rewards or anything like that. He just wants to be the best fighter. And his good friend, his best friend, Ken Masters, lives in Seattle, makes a lot of money doing being an actor. That's right. Is he an actor? Crap, I don't remember. Meanwhile, we have two characters who are trying to find and defeat Shadow Law, and thus M. Bison. Guile and Chun-Li. So let's just spitball an idea for a movie. Alright, so first off we would need to have, I would include Balrog in the opening sequence, because what I would have him do is I would have, just as an idea, I would have Balrog be one of the first people that either M. Bison is going after, or that approaches to join his evil organization by, like, I don't know if I would have him, like, placing bets, or maybe getting him to take a fall, or something. Just, like, rigging a fight. As kind of payment. But then M. Bison still, like, ropes him into getting into Shadowlaw and tracking down these great fighters for him.
Been looking for you, Nabat.
Oh, shit. Wow. Considering she just dove straight down, that was kind of intense.
Your Eminence, please escape. I'll cover your retreat.
Will you?
Why don't you leave, Jill? Or rather, take your leave. Humans have no business here.
What? Your Eminence!
Oh. Ooh, ouch.
What? Magic?
Well, I guess he really didn't want any people to see this.
People are not yours to use.
What else does one do with tools?
Ow.
Cocoon is a factory built by Fal'Cie. A factory for the mass production of human thralls.
Not anymore, it's not.
What can mere men do? Without our help, death is all of which are
And ultimately this would lead
You saw the
M. Bison
fruits
towards
of
Ryu.
my
Meanwhile, we see Ryu traveling around the world, fighting all these other characters that are in there, mainly just to prove that he's the best fighter in the world. But, like, anytime people bet on him or try to give him prize money, he turns it down. Except, like, accepting simple things like a bed or food or something like that.
I am more than that. I am Fal'Cie. My name is Spartandus, voice of the Sanctum and Lord Sovereign of the Cocoon Fal'Cie. Your kind feared the darkness, so we gave you light.
Well,
You begged us for the purge, and did it not come to pass? Now you spurn our counsel. You must learn your place.
alright, so this fight,
Cocoon's
as I
nothing to
recall
you.
it, is kind of a pain in the butt.
Keep out of it.
You're open!
Actually, let's start with evening odds. Meanwhile, in the third in the C plot, or possibly it's the B plot,
Keep out of this.
we have Chun-Li and Guile essentially running around the world, working for Interpol or whatever, going out of their way to try and find Shadowlaw agents. We see have a couple interrogation scenes, maybe introduce even a couple of other characters like Cammy or whatever that are part of this, but not really involved. And then this, we see the trend of him like recruiting fighters, that then leads to them figuring out that maybe going after Ken. Maybe they go after Ken because for some reason they think Ken is really the one that is the one that M. Bison's going after. Yes, feel free. I am here to do my best to entertain you. And if you have questions, ask me.
Follow my lead. This will be quick.
Is that all?
Thank you. This will be quick.
Okay. I can turn that down.
This will be quick.
No worries.
This will be quick.
My favorite pie is
This will be quick. This will be quick.
strawberry cheesecake.
Thanks.
This will be quick.
Oh, I was stranded on a desert isle? Strawberry cheesecake. It's hands down, even if I'm not stranded on a desert isle and I have any other type of dessert I could possibly have, strawberry cheesecake. Is that better? Sound-wise.
What can mere deceive?
It went from negative 8 decibels to... it kind of depends on how it's presented, but I generally see 2 different types of cheesecake. There is either effectively in a what I would call a pie form, which is like
This will be quick.
the graham cracker crust, with like just straight fruit on top of it.
This will be quick.
Right, let's see here.
This will be quick.
Unfortunately, unlike most other games that we've played, there is not a whole lot. There's no in-game volume, which is normally how I turn it down.
Thanks.
Or there's the other type that you normally see, which is usually considered more of a cake. But now it's down to negative 11 decibels. So hopefully that'll work out a little bit better for you. And that is usually just has like a chocolate or some sort of something else that we would consider like another dessert substance on top.
Take down the enemy.
And those are generally what you will see for cheesecakes, and I consider cheesecake a pie. But I can definitely see the argument if someone were to only have ever really experienced the one that has some sort of like what you would consider another dessert effectively on top of it. Like that one.
Thank you.
For the most part, my social interactions were with other artists. Aside from just my friends that I kept from high school, which were all just giant nerds. So mostly what we did in my university days, in my art school days, was complain. About projects, about programs, about whatever it is we had to deal with. And when it came to my friends, we would mostly talk about like anime or video games or whatever it was that we were interested in at the time. It was not too dissimilar from my current social interactions, which is like I hang out with my good friends, although we're a bit older, so it's a lot less partying. Not at the school that I went to. I went to a strictly speaking art school, and there was not much of that. There would be a lot of people going out to bars,
Thanks.
It'd be like, oh god, Photoshop says it's gonna take like 3 hours to rasterize. So let's go to a bar. Or it would be, oh god, Photoshop is going to take 4 hours to rasterize. At least it says it's going to take 4 hours to rasterize. So who's up for some risk?
You will taste agony.
Give it your best shot.
Played a lot of board games. It's where I learned to hate Monopoly, because I had never actually really played much Monopoly until school. But keep in mind, I was only in art school for 1 semester before I dropped out, so maybe there would have been more interaction had I stayed. Who knows? But then I got into the workforce, and that is pretty much where I met all of my current, like, really good friends. It was through working at Toys R Us, actually. Which is really sad because Toys R Us is going under, but it was not the best managed company I've ever seen, so I'm not entirely surprised by that. We will not be able to stop him, will we? Nope. He's totally going to get that spell off.
Follow my lead.
Time to do some healing. Oh, that wasn't that bad. I mean, that was certainly not fun.
Thank you.
Yep. I have not looked... I still have some friends that work at Toys R Us. They decided to kind of career it. I have not looked into when the my local store is closing.
This'll be quick.
Yeah, that was a really sad day, actually, when I read that.
You will taste agony.
But, I mean, that's kind of the world of business. I remember, I don't know how many of you remember a little toy store by the name of KB Toys. We should probably even the odds, but KB Toys was the first sort of thing like Toys R Us that was a toy store before anything else. And it went out of business because Toys R Us went national.
Thanks.
Well, damn
Just
it.
like that.
Alright, Lightning. Will we get the moment to make the fight easier on ourselves? We will. Okay. And how do you say are we going to make the fight easier on ourselves? We are going to do more damage. But briefly going back to the cheesecake thing. Cheesecake is totally a pie. Without a doubt.
Nothing to you? You're going down.
Alright, we are going to do our best to tear this guy into pieces. I mean, he may be a god, but he's not my god. I only take orders from the Platinum Dragon himself. Only insofar as that it started off as part of like an elite power structure. Actually, not true. No, it's fine. Only insofar as that it started off as kind of like apprenticeships, and then moved into kind of an elite power structure, and like a tutoring system, essentially. Aside from that, not particularly. And that a lot of learning was, at least initially, propagated by churches, because the biggest thing was literacy, specifically. Because what's the best way to get people to continuously think about God? Have them, or rather just your religious tenets, have them educated enough to read. That way, they can continuously read your holy text. That's about the easiest way to get people to continuously care about your holy text, is to make it easy for them to participate. Especially anything higher learning, what we would consider like universities. Cosmology was also taught a lot, but it was Terra-centric cosmology, not heliocentric, like we know and use today. If you don't know what heliocentric is, that's fine. That just means that everything in our solar system revolves around the sun. That's all it means. Correct. Not as emphasized because if you thought about them, at the time it wouldn't have been astronomy, because it would have been the study of the cosmos, which included not just like the planets and the sun, what we consider our solar system, but also included the sky is heaven, and somewhere under the world, where all the fiery lava comes from, is hell. But when not Newton, Galileo, and actually there was someone way before Galileo that came up with the idea of heliocentric cosmology. They were kind of the fathers of what we consider today to be astronomy. Well, we hurt him pretty bad, but not bad enough. Copernicus, yes, thank you. We wouldn't be surprised. what's the turn of phrase? The only reason I can see as far, or see so far, is because I stand on the shoulder of giants.
I'll deal with you. Appreciate it.
Got your back.
You are ignorant of your place.
Alright, so we got a fair amount of damage in on him, but not enough. I'm probably misremembering it, but it's something to the effect of the only reason I can see so far is because I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. Meaning that the only reason I have the foresight and the ideas that I have is because people before me paved the way for these ideas to exist. Okay.
Thanks.
Which is a concept that I can... Okay, what is that smiley... What is that frowny face? I wasn't paying attention to the spells people were casting. Oh boy, lightning. You...
I'll deal with you. I'll deal with you. I'll deal with you.
Oh boy, that
I'll deal with you.
spell hurt a lot. And I'd rather not have that happen again.
Witness my power.
This one's not so bad.
Appreciate it.
Alright, let's even the odds again. Let's get those bonuses up.
Thank you.
Most compulsory education would have been religion-based. Oh, wrong one. Solidarity. Especially European. Asian countries were a little more forthcoming on basic things like mathematics and reading and writing. Because especially anywhere where Confucianism was popular as a religion, because the part of the basis of Confucianism is that by improving the lowest, you improve the highest. So if you want society to be really good, you have to start at the bottom.
Thank you.
In terms of like education. However, for morals, you have to start at the top. That's how Confucianism works. It's everybody gets educated, and the very top of the food chain needs to be more than just educated, but or food chain power structure needs to be incredibly moral and essentially like setting the example. No, it was all about I wouldn't necessarily say like ancestor worship kind of thing. Mathematics was not high because mathematics was not considered something that everybody that truly improved society as a whole. It was more about like knowing where you came from. So history was a big thing, and ritualism. Science, to the degree that science was taught anywhere in pre-first century. Ooh, a Crystarium is expanded, and we defeated the boss, who appears to be the T-1000.
The Fal'Cie running the sanctum.
Then, I guess it wasn't Eden controlling things after all.
As I said, I am Lord Sovereign.
Guess Fal'Cie don't go down as easy as the rest of us.
Ease is not the issue. You have not fought to win. You should know quite well already the sure way of dispatching our kind. Ragnarok.
What's Ragnarok? Ah! Ah!
Pitiful Lassie. You've forgotten your focus. Ragnarok is the beast one of you must become in order to lay waste to Cocoon. You have had the dream. One among you will become that monstrosity. Defeat Orphan and destroy Cocoon.
So, Sin 2.0, got it.
Font of Eden's power. Orphan fuels Eden with strength, and Eden in turn sustains you and the rest of our kind. Destroy Orphan.
It's an interesting idea.
And you'll release a force such as this world has never seen. Cocoon will be torn asunder.
So if I did that, destroyed Orphan,
Your focus will be fulfilled.
So what? Who says it has to be?
Sarah asked us to save Cocoon before she turned to Crystal.
Yes, she did.
Save it! And that's what we're gonna do. Sarah was trying to tell us how to complete our focus, and we have...
Allow me to help you see the truth of things.
Okay. I love to see the truth of things.
Arrived, your friend wept crystal tears. This was because her focus required that you be brought together. That girl did nothing but assemble the tools for Cocoon's destruction.
The modern model of education, that would have been
Or did you simply refuse to countenance the thought?
probably in the Victorian era.
Not face the truth, then face the peril of your
I don't want to call
plight.
them schools so much as education factories. That's probably where it would have begun. That is a really...
Let's see. See how stark reality is.
Oh, it is in fact not an owl altogether.
Come on!
But if you're talking even more modern, that would have been in... Well, like the de-emphasis on the arts and physical education. That would have been in, like, the 80s.
Coming.
Not so fast, Lassie.
Hang on!
Because things like art and physical labors of any kind were looked down upon because college became the yes, they are. And that was a system where you had a mandatory schooling for a very brief period of years. I think it was like 4 years of compulsory education. And then you were highly encouraged to continue with education in that system's particular. But you could also enter an apprenticeship, which was, of course, its own type of education.
Can we do something?
Got me! I give up!
The shield.
And most people went into apprenticeships because it was a much easier to get an apprenticeship for a trade than it was to pass the exams to get into any higher learning centers. In terms of the far more modern, like the emphasis on arts and physical labor jobs and the emphasis on physical education, yes. I would say in the 1980s is roughly when that would have begun, partly because of a higher emphasis being placed on attending college, because you could only get a good job if you had a college degree, and also because a lot of cuts were being taken out of the public education funds to fuel other things. So if you're going to cut something, and the current thought process is that you need to go to college in order to make anything of yourself, well, cut things that don't help you get into college. Art and PE don't help you get into college unless you're going in on a sports scholarship, but that's completely different. That's totally okay, according to the thought at the time.
Where are we?
Looks like a piece of pulse.
Pulse? What, you mean like the Bodum vestige? Something like that. It's close to Eden.
Yeah, well, what I don't understand is after the purge and all that Lassie paranoia, why keep a chunk of pulse under the floorboards?
Is this what the Primarch wanted us to see?
A place for Lassie to accept their fate.
Do you really think our focus is what Daisley said it is?
I mean,
You mean become Ragnarok?
Destroy the Falsi Eden and shatter Cocoon. That's what the vision's telling us. So, back to square one. Out of luck.
Mr. Hero!
yes.
Cocoon calling snow!
Of course, we have a greater access to information than they ever did, thanks to the internet.
Daisley wants it to come.
But that would have been probably,
Mind explaining it. Here's your
in
focus
terms
on
of
the
just
silver
raw
bullet.
like
But that
courses
doesn't make
being
sense.
taught,
I don't get
like
it. Why would a
um,
Cocoon Falsi want to destroy
the establishment of what is taught in history classes, math classes, and science
Some
classes.
grand design we just don't
That
understand.
probably would have been in post-World War II,
Hey, Snow! Nothing
when they
from
were
you?
essentially rebuilding the education system for the future. Modern education is a very complicated thing, because it has of course it's had to change with whatever the times are, whatever the standard is. And these, of course, like, I'm just one guy who's trying to think about this from a logical perspective. who knows how far off I am. I like, this is not something that I've tried to study. I'm just trying to think about it. I would expect in future years to see, I don't know if I would call it, I don't know what I would call it, but I would expect a greater emphasis on trade skills and art as my generation through the next generation grow up and start becoming the teachers and whatnot of the next generation. And like running and figuring out like what is important, what we consider important to society. All right, well, she was a very strong commando. It will definitely be very interesting to see where things go. Alright, so we're gonna save here, and we'll see what's immediately up ahead. But we don't have a whole lot of time left, so it's just pushing forward and seeing what we got to deal with. A train station. All right.
You ready to get out of here?
Yes.
Yeah, I gotta apologize. Looks like I was wrong.
About Sarah's focus? Not like you to second guess yourself.
Well, even heroes make mistakes.
What about your plan to protect Cocoon?
Well, I mean, that's
Either way, your faith in Sarah was strong. That's
kind of the point of science, is to...
It was all wrong.
So
Yeah.
what was it? A lot of people fear that science
that you even fooled yourself.
is here to prove
You've been a total
the non-existence of God.
But still,
Isaac Newton believed that science was here to discover, or not to prove God exists. And most modern scientists or strong believers in science
let that faith
believe that
drive
science
you.
is here to find the truth.
It even made me want
That's what we use science for. And my personal hope is that scientists are using it to discover the truth about the world and universe around us. And if so, I welcome every scientific discovery. And I hope they get integrated
Talk to me, baby.
in a
This could be.
meaningful
I
way
mean,
into the
those are
education system.
weapons, right?
I want to say we're close to Eden, but it's hard to be sure.
From what we... So here's what I believe we can expect from scientific discoveries of today and in the future. And that is that as science improves for various things,
I can't believe we're still in Cocoon.
It's kind of creepy.
typically how things go is that there is usually a push in the military for something that is sometimes scientific, sometimes an engineering bet, but those developments slowly get trickled down to non-military application. Ooh, these guys are rough. And the same is true largely with the science community is that as developments get more and more amazing, some of those developments trickle down into improving general society and not focusing so heavily on the just the scientific or military communities. But that is just a very general Nope. There's... Damn it. I don't have the one that I want. That's what I'll have to do. That is generally how we see things. It's not always the case. Sometimes things are specifically developed to improve like comfort and general populace, but generally the way we see things get to the general populace is through either the need for it in an industry like science or manufacturing, or military, which is definitely
Keep a cool head.
in a industry. We did not hit him hard enough, fast enough. So, Snow, you are so messed up. It's a good thing Vanille is actually good at healing, because Lightning isn't. The greatest example of what I'm describing is actually the internet itself. The internet itself was born in its most rudimentary forms post-World War II as a defense mechanism to keep the United States safe by connecting all the military bases simultaneously, so that any general or the commander-in-chief at any military base could use the launch codes to deliver a nuclear strike anywhere in the world from any military base on the world. That was its initial creation purposes. And then, slowly, universities got involved because they needed to be able to share information very quickly for the purposes of researchers. And then, as more and more people in that industry got access to the internet, they started wanting it in their homes so that they could do research or look up research from their homes and continue their work in that way. And then it eventually trickled out into everyday normal use. Alright, role development unlocked. Your party members have unlocked potential to assume all combat roles. From now on, you may also freely select the members of your battle team. To take on a new role, a member must first learn the ability for that role. You can teach a party member a new ability in the Crystarium. Alright. This seems like a really complicated place. The Fifth Ark. Concealed vestige.
This place. It must be an ark.
An ark?
That's what they called them.
Long ago, the Falsi, who made their home on Grand Pulse, were afraid of invasion from the outside. As part of their battle preparations, they created an army of living weapons. And they stored those weapons in arks. And they hid the arks all over the world.
Everyone on Grand Pulse knew the legend.
So, this is basically a Pulse armory.
Most of us never believed in them. A few people tried searching.
Yes.
But they never found a thing. Who'd have thought to look on Cocoon?
Right under our noses. Some secret they kept. Those sanctum guys.
That is a
what are
very
they up to?
apt way to put
The
it.
story's not done. There's more.
They used to say the Arks had a more practical purpose.
Really?
Yeah, to force Lassie to master their shiny new powers.
Okay, so I get it. Daisley's goal is to forge us into stronger weapons. Right.
Not Seath, but monsters all the same.
Think of it as
That's a very
training,
interesting way to put
fighting.
it.
Herb's right.
Wait, what was that?
More robots being produced, assumably.
These guys again.
Fun times.
Over there. We gotta keep moving.
Alright, so... Are we at... We are nowhere near a save point. And unfortunately, we can't... Is there a save point back over here? Sorry, guys. Sorry. Hey, here's a save point. Alright. I don't know. That's a very interesting thought process, though. So, we are going to go ahead and call it here for tonight. I just want to remind you guys that this Saturday is our bonus stream. We're going to be playing Telltale's The Walking Dead Season 3, giving away a copy of Telltale's The Walking Dead Season 3, along with 3 Steam gift cards for $20, and a copy of Psychonauts, a personal favorite game of mine. We're going to be starting at noon Pacific time, and we're going to be going to hopefully no later than 8 p.m. Pacific time, but we'll go as long as we need to. Also, we have our normal stream tomorrow from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific time, so please go ahead and join us for that as well. I would like to thank everybody for coming in and hanging out. I especially want to thank Kassan and As the True 2 and Mr. Henry and Wicked for participating in chat tonight. Thank you guys very much. Like I said, I hope you'll join me tomorrow, and even more, I hope you'll join me on Saturday. Hope you guys have a wonderful night. See you tomorrow.